Namaskar and welcome. You're watching Newsnight. Well, on the occasion of Global Recycling Day, Government of India took a big leap today by introducing the scrappage policy, which comes with new template, not only in terms of development, but also in terms of reducing vehicular pollution. Plus, it is also seen as a massive booster for automobile sector. We will be joined on the show by Joint Secretary from Ministry of Road Transport and Highways to tell us how this scrappage policy is seen as a major game changer on many fronts. And also on the Newsnight, the other talking point, U.S. Secretary of Defense Austin's visit to India as a part of his first overseas travel is scheduled for tomorrow. He will be meeting Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and other senior dignitaries of the Government of India. On the Newsnight tonight, we talk about the importance and the significance of that visit as well. But first up, here are the headlines. On World Recycling Day, Road and Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari announces vehicular scrappage policy in Lok Sabha. Age of the vehicles kept at 15 years for commercial vehicles, 20 years for personal vehicles. Gadkari hails it as a win-win. Recycling will reduce cost of automobile parts. 25 to 30% reduction in vehicular pollution expected. Around 4 crore jobs to be generated. Prime Minister Narendra Modi writes to a farmer on crop insurance scheme, says Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana is playing an important role in protecting economic interests of farmers by reducing their risk. Farmer Kemanand of Nainital had written to Prime Minister on the Namo app. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin heads to India for his first visit. He will hold talks with Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, strengthening bilateral defense cooperation, regional security challenges and maintaining a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region on the agenda. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken heads home after holding 2+2 dialogue with South Korea. South Korea's President Moon Jae-in welcomes return of diplomacy and alliance with United States of America, reiterates goal of denuclearizing North Korea in his first meeting with senior Biden administration officials. European Union officially joins Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure or CDRI following its endorsement of the charter of the CDRI earlier, says in a statement climate-related extreme events are increasing globally and the COVID-19 pandemic has further reinforced the need for robust disaster preparedness. Prime Minister Narendra Modi leads BJP's charge for West Bengal. Polls in Purulia takes a dig on Mamata's Khela Hobe call, says games will end soon and development will take place. Also addresses rally in Assam's Karimganj. Mamata Banerjee holds rally in West Midnapur. BJP releases list of 148 candidates for the state. State Party President Dilip Ghosh not contesting. Thursday also saw smooth conduct of parliamentary proceedings in both houses. Rajya Sabha passes bill to raise FDI limited insurance sector to 74%. Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman says the bill to allow foreign ownership and control of insurance companies, but with safeguards. Also, lower house passes the supplementary demand for grants for Jammu and Kashmir and Puducherry. And we begin with a top story on Newsnight. A top story, the much-awaited scrappage policy has been discussed today in Lok Sabha. And as per Union Minister Nitin Gadkari, vehicle will have to undergo mandatory fitness test, failing which it will be declared an end of life. Now, this augurs in a way good news for consumers who are planning to junk their old vehicles and also buy a new one under the vehicle scrapping policy, as automakers will be have been advised to give about 5% rebate on the new purchase. So according to an estimate, why this is important, because at least 100 crore polluting vehicles will be scrapped off the roads upon the implementation of this new policy. Here is more.
Thursday brought good news for automobile industry and consumers who want to go for new vehicles in exchange of old ones. Union Minister Nitin Gadkari presented an outline of upcoming vehicle scrappage policy in Lok Sabha. As per Union Minister, the much-awaited scrappage policy will not only boost the economy by removing older vehicles and putting newer ones on the road, It will also help in curbing pollution by taking polluting vehicles off the road. It may be recalled this year's union budget had a specific mention of bringing in force new scrap policy. The policy will be notified in a period of a month or so, and ahead of the final rollout, here are the key takeaways. A vehicle will have to go mandatory fitness test once the registration of the vehicle ends. The age of the vehicles is kept 15 years for commercial vehicles and 20 for personal vehicles. Old vehicles will be required to undergo mandatory fitness and pollution test in automated facilities. For this, automated fitness centers would be required throughout the country.
पुराने वाहन फिट वाहनों की तुलना में 10 से 12 गुना अधिक प्रदूषण और हवा को प्रदूषित करते हैं और सड़क सुरक्षा के लिए भारी जोखिम है। यहाँ एक ऐसी विन विन पॉलिसी होगी जिससे कि न केवल पुराने वाहनों को स्क्रैप करने का प्रोत्साहन मिलेगा, बल्कि नए वाहनों को खरीदने के लिए सामान्य जनमानस को आर्थिक सहूलत भी मिलेगी। स्क्रैपिंग पॉलिसी है, ये एक ऐसी परिस्थिति निर्माण करेगी जिससे स्क्रैपिंग सेंटर्स, ऑटोमोबाइल इंडस्ट्री, component industry और सामान्य लोगों को इसका फायदा होगा।
The new scrappage policy is poised to benefit car consumers. Vehicle manufacturers are advised to give 5% discount on new vehicles against a scrapping certificate. Scrap value of the ex-showroom price of vehicle ranging from 4 to 6% will be given to owner if they choose to scrap the vehicle. A rebate of up to 25% will be given in road tax. Upon showing scrap certificate, the policy proposes waiver of registration fees.
उसमें व्हीकल मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कॉस्ट भी कम होगी और वाहन के मालिक को व्हीकल का स्क्रैप मूल्य जो लगभग 4 से 6% होता है वो भी मिलेगा एवं स्क्रैपिंग सर्टिफिकेट भी मिलेगा। इसके साथ साथ हमने एक एडवाइजरी भी आज निकाली है कि ये सर्टिफिकेट लेकर नई गाड़ी खरीदने के लिए जो भी कोई व्यक्ति जाएगा उसको 5% नए गाड़ी के कीमत पर सहूलियत दे। इस प्रकार की एडवाइजरी भी भारत सरकार से हमने उनको दी है। इससे लोगों को नए वाहनों को खरीदने के लिए प्रोत्साहित होंगे, जिसमें ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर की सेल्स और बढ़ेगी। इसमें जो राज्य सरकार का और भारत सरकार का जीएसटी है, अनुमान है कि करीब 30 से 40 हज़ार करोड़ इसमें जीएसटी बढ़ेगा क्योंकि नए वाहनों की खरीदी बिक्री होगी।
Significantly, new scrappage policy will have a huge impact on the cost effectiveness of new vehicles. New policy will ensure less dependency on import of raw materials like steel, rubber, aluminium that further lead to reduction in prices of the new vehicles.
तो मुझे लगता है कि ये सबसे ज़्यादा रोजगार देने वाली इंडस्ट्री है, तो इसके कारण हमारा एक्सपोर्ट भी बढ़ेगा और काफ़ी फायदा होगा। अब ये ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर का इसमें स्क्रैपिंग पॉलिसी लागू होने पर निश्चित रूप से नया एम्प्लॉयमेंट खड़ा होगा, एक्सपोर्ट बढ़ेगा, जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट बढ़ेगी, पर कैपिटा इनकम बढ़ेगा और इसके कारण एम्प्लॉयमेंट पोटेंशियल बढ़ेगा और प्रदूषण कम होगा।
The policy started as a major step to boost the Indian automobile sector. It is estimated, besides 30% boost to the automobile industry, turnover to rupees 10 lakh crore in the years to come, besides giving a renewed push to auto sector that accounts for a huge chunk of employment generation. With inputs from Vishal Baristo, Newsnight Desk, DT India.
So Newsnight tonight we look at a big picture. How is this a win-win situation for the country, the new scrappage policy? In focus tonight, we're going to talk about this in detail. How is this policy poised in terms of new templates, in development and much more, from moving from waste to wealth? In that direction, in that vision of Prime Minister Modi, is this going to be a big leap or big way forward? And very glad to have on Newsnight tonight. In fact, very honored to have on Newsnight tonight, since we are talking about the scrappage policy comprehensively, Mr. Amit Vardhan on the show. He's Joint Secretary, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. Mr. Vardhan, thank you very much, sir. Really appreciate you joining us on the National Broadcaster. And also very glad to have on the show Vinkesh Gulati, President, Federation of Automobile Dealers Association. Very important body as of now, because the reactions coming from the Automobile Federation and other, similar verticals are very, very important. Because, Mr. Vardhan, let me quickly start with you, sir. The ripple effect this is really going to have not only in the automobile industry, but overall, if we look at, there was this very comprehensive outline presentation by the Honorable Minister today in the Parliament, but he said it's a win-win situation. Just for the benefit of our viewers, Aam Aadmi, Aam consumer, how is this going to be a game changer?
Well, this is a very, very big step by the ministry. If we look at Citizen, the newer vehicles are very low on fuel consumption and maintenance costs. So there will be substantial saving there. They have a much improved safety features, and they lead to much lower pollution, about 10 to 12 times lower than the older vehicles. So it is a win-win situation. We have carried out calculations also over a certain time frame. It will lead to tremendous savings for the consumer. For the industry as a whole, it will boost investment worth rupees 10,000 crores. It is estimated that about 35,000 jobs will be created. We are also endeavoring to bring the informal sector, the informal vehicle scrapping industry into the formal sector. So that will further push up growth. Then scrap will release low-cost raw materials for steel industry and other rare earth metals. So there are tremendous benefits for everyone.
Tremendous benefits for everyone. We're going to talk about it phase by phase, but before that, let me quickly go to Mr. Gulati. How is the Federation, Automobile Federation, looking at it in reactions coming in, especially the way the automobile sector was so badly hit during COVID times in terms of recovering from that shock and this policy being implemented at this juncture? Industry reaction, please.
Thank you for having me. Obviously, we were looking forward to this policy for since very long. We had been discussing with this with the MORTH and the Minister Saab also. And we are happy that it's finally seen the day. Some information came in the budget speech and then later. So overall, this sets the tone for the future. A scrappage policy is a must because it actually sets up the age of the vehicle, sets up the system where a vehicle is drivable as per the norms of today. It defines that. Whereas a person who has bought a vehicle will drive till it is drivable. But if you see the kind of safety features which have been enhanced as of now, the government had been front running in improving the safety. The kind of vehicle economy has improved, means what you get in per liter on kilometer. And the kind of pollution emission norms have improved. So we feel that this is the best thing to happen today. No doubt, there are dates which has to be completed, the fitness, the scrappage yard. It will take some time to actually see the ground reality. But overall, this is a very good decision, very good future-oriented policy for the auto industry. And obviously, this will benefit the customers a lot also.
Yeah, that point of consumer being benefited, at the end of the day, they say consumer is the king. But Mr. Vardhan, very quickly now, the presentation also talked about how this is going to actually, once the policy is implemented, how Mr. Vardhan is going to have a huge impact as far as the cost effectiveness of the new vehicles is concerned and the rebates that you're also offering in the process. Can you please elaborate on that?
We are offering a series of incentives. The first thing is that once the vehicle is scrapped in a registered vehicle scrapping facility, then it will get a scrapping certificate. The owner will get a scrapping certificate. Against that certificate, if he buys a new vehicle, then the registration fee would be waived off. That is one thing. Then we are writing to states to consider rebate in road tax up to 25% for personal vehicles and up to 15% for commercial vehicles. Then we have written to the Automobile Association of India that they should consider giving a discount of at least 5% for new vehicles against these scrapping certificates. We are also saying that there should be seamless deregistration of these vehicles through our Vahan portal, which is hosted by NIC. So all the scrapping centers, fitness centers will be linked to Vahan, so there will be seamless deregistration. And then when the vehicle is scrapped, it will get about 4 to 6% of the ex-showroom price of the new vehicle. So these are major incentives that we are proposing.
Okay. Now, the implementation of this is a phased and a calibrated manner, and it doesn't really lead to a lot of confusion when it comes to consumers, registration, deregistration, automated centers as well. I'm going to talk about the automated centers to you, Mr. Vardhan, but before that, let me go to Mr. Gulati. Very quick one. The policy is also touted as a major booster for the automobile sector. If you look at the numbers, 30% boost to the Indian automobile industry, and we're looking at the turnover of around 10 lakh crore in the years to come, at least 10 years. How does the industry really look at it? Because do you see, of course, the huge chunk of employment that the automobile sector also has to offer, but do you also see some challenges in long run to implement this policy?
See, there are no big challenges here. The major issue is the mindset of the customer. So you have to consider that we are talking about Indian customer who buys a vehicle and treats it like his own. So giving away that vehicle, that is where we have to pitch in as dealers, as the auto industry, that this is also a thing which is to be replaced after some years. So normally you must have seen people who have bought their first vehicle, they are still standing in the at home. They bought a new vehicle to move around and they still use the old vehicle around. So there are some emotional touch. For Indian customer, buying a vehicle is really an important event for them. So the biggest challenge obviously is the coming of the infrastructure, but obviously government has phased-wise planned, and I am confident that that will be implemented. And it's nothing new, because if I talk of abroad, world over, the scrappage center, the fitness centers are already there. We are not looking at creating a new process or a new technology. It's already there. It has just to be implemented. So it's more to do with the mindset of a customer who has to give away his vehicle for a replacement. And obviously, like Mr. Amit ji said, the kind of motivation, the kind of amount difference will it come, the incentive will come. The customers will, in times to come, be motivated in giving back their vehicle and taking a new one.
Mr. Vardhan, would you like to add to that? It's very heartening and glad to see the positive response coming from the Federation body, saying that there are no issues vis-a-vis infrastructure, but the mindset of the consumer or the customer needs to be, it has to change a bit. Well, that's something which will happen with time. But Mr. Vardhan, phasing out old vehicles, registration, deregistration, then the fitness testing and all of that, it's a humongous exercise, sir. So how does government intend to go about it in terms of phase-wise implementation of this?
No, we are working in a very systematic manner, well-planned manner. So in the first stage, we have consulted major players in the scrapping industry and the fitness industry and the automobile industry to frame rules for setting up scrapping centers and automated fitness centers. That's the first job. So in fact, today we have issued the draft rules for the scrapping centers. So these have been issued after due discussions with stakeholders of all kinds. So that has been issued and it will be in the public domain for 1 month. We'll welcome suggestions and comments on these rules so that these are robust rules. We have based our rules on what is actually happening in India and abroad. There are a few scrapping centers here also and abroad. So we have tried to go with the best models, but we are open to all kinds of suggestions so that this can become a very robust set of rules. That is one. Then we'll be working on the fitness testing station rules. We have already engaged with investors and with players in this sector so as to frame the best kinds of rules. So that will also be issued.
But very quickly, Mr. Vardhan, let me quickly ask you this. In a way, government is also encouraging use of alternative fuel, electric vehicles. Obviously, the aspect of reduction of environmental pollution is there. But don't you think that's going to be a very time-consuming aspect?
No, we are moving very fast. In fact, we have already notified various kinds of fuels, ethanol, methanol. Then we are providing for retrofitment also of agricultural tractors. Then electric vehicles, already we have issued all the necessary guidelines. Then there's another sister department of ours, which is paying a lot of subsidy, in a scheme called FAME, for the growth of electric vehicles. So we are moving very fast in this regard.
Okay, final word, Mr. Vardhan, since we have the Joint Secretary yourself, joining us on the show. Any message for the Indian consumer on the scrappage policy from the tagline that we have, moving from waste to wealth?
Yeah, it's a very, very positive step, and I would request all customers to think of it as a new phase in the Indian automobile industry. And given the incentives that we are proposing, And the fact that newer vehicles are always a win-win situation for them, we would request them to join this campaign and make India a much less polluted country and less and more economical travel for them, safer travel for them. So this is a very good situation for them.
And last word from Federation body, Mr. Gulati.
Yeah, obviously, it's a win-win situation for everybody. If you talk of auto manufacturers, obviously the retails will increase, the production will increase. They'll have to enhance their factories. It's good for dealers. With the retails, we'll have to open up more centers, and all this will add more manpower, which is needed in India. So good for employment, good for industry, good for foreign investments also.
Yes.
And the best thing is it's a win-win for customer also.
Yes.
So like Amit ji said, everybody is here is win-win. No doubt it will take some time for things to roll down and get the benefit at every level. So let's wait, and it's a good work.
Yes, on that positive note, thank you very much, gentlemen. Amit Vardhan, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Road and Highways, for joining us. I really appreciate. Also thanking Vikesh Gulati, President, Federation of Automobile Dealers Association. Let's now move on and talk about the other stories that we are tracking for you on Newsnight. Though Prime Minister Narendra Modi's daily routine is very busy, not many people are aware that whenever he finds time, he does not miss the opportunity to respond to people's letters and their messages. One such letter was received by Khemanand of Nainital in Uttarakhand, who congratulated the Prime Minister through the Namo app on the completion of 5 successful years of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana and other efforts of the government. Now, let's take a look at the letter. Prime Minister Modi wrote in the letter stating, and I quote, "Such messages give me new energy to commit myself for the service of the country," unquote. Prime Minister also referred to the success of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. He said this policy protects the economic interests as crores of farmers are availing the benefits of this farmer-friendly insurance scheme. In the letter, the Prime Minister further talked about the comprehensive coverage and transparent claim redressal process over the last 5 years. Honorable Prime Minister also appreciated the contribution and role of the people in the progress of the country in the letter, stating, and I quote, that the nation is determined to achieve the national goals and also to take the country to new heights on the world stage. In fact, it may be recalled earlier, Khemanand had congratulated Prime Minister Modi in his message on the successful completion of 5 years of the crop insurance scheme. So, Khemanand, a farmer in Nainital, suffered crop losses. He benefited greatly because of the Pradhan Mantri Kisan Fasal Bima Yojana. And this prompted him to share his story on the Namo app. He thanked Prime Minister for taking out time for a common man like him.
हम लोगों के सबकी जो फसल थी वो पूरी क्षतिग्रस्त हो गई थी, तो सरकार की तरफ से हमको फसल बीमा योजना के अंतर्गत एक राशि दी गई, जिससे हमें बहुत हमारे परिवार को एक संबल मिला और हमारी आर्थिक स्थिति जो डबाडोल होने वाली थी वो बच गई। और हमारे गांव के बहुत सारे किसान फसल बीमा का वर्तमान में लाभ उठाते हैं। प्रधानमंत्री फसल बीमा योजना के संदर्भ में माननीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को हमने पत्र भेजा था। वैसे मैं अन्य सार्वजनिक हितार्थ पत्र भेजते रहता हूं, तो मोदी जी ने हमारा पत्र अपने संज्ञान में लिया, तो मुझे बड़ी खुशी हुई कि उन्होंने एक छोटे से मजदूर कृषक किसान की बात को सुना और उस पर अमल किया और हमें प्रोत्साहन के मद्देनजर अपना एक प्रशस्ति पत्र भेजा।
And now moving on to the other big talking point of the show tonight. U.S. Secretary of Defense General Lloyd J. Austin's Indo-Pacific visit will end with his first India stopover from tomorrow to 21st of March. And during his visit, Secretary Austin will be meeting Defense Minister Raksha Mantri Rajnath Singh and other senior dignitaries of the Government of India. Well, both sides are expected to discuss ways to further strengthen bilateral cooperation and also exchange views on regional security, challenges and common interests in maintaining free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region. Discussions regarding defense cooperation would also focus on how both countries could consolidate military-to-military cooperation and defense trade and industry cooperation as well. Secretary Austin's visit to India as part of his first overseas travel emphasizes the strength of the Indo-US strategic partnership. And Arun Kumar Singh, former Indian ambassador to the United States of America, joining us on the show tonight to talk about the larger messaging and optics of it. Ambassador Singh, thank you so much for joining us on DD India. Very quickly, first come first. The larger messaging when this India happens to be one of the first countries for Biden administration's top executive to land and meet our defense minister tomorrow.
The visit clearly is in part of the broader geopolitical messaging that the US is doing, because you'd have seen before this visit, the US president hosted a meeting of the Quad leaders, India, Japan, Australia, and the United States. And he said publicly that this was the first multilateral meeting that he was hosting as president. I think US has said, the new leadership repeatedly, that the main challenge that they see going ahead is the challenge from China. Secretary of State Blinken has said that China will be the main geopolitical test for the United States in the 21st century. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, who is coming to India, he said China will be the main bracing challenge for the United States. So their whole effort is now to try and shape the environment around the rise of China so that US can protect its interests. And they said that they need to do it from a position of strength. First, strengthen the US itself economically. So they passed a major stimulus package. Second, build up a relationship with allies and partners. And that's why, besides the Quad, the US Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense have just visited Japan, South Korea, have had meetings of the 2+2. And Secretary of Defense has now come on to India, while Secretary of State Blinken, along with the US National Security Advisor, will be holding later today meetings with their Chinese counterparts in Alaska. Because the effort is, they said, to send a clear message to China about the kind of steps and actions that China has been taking, which is not acceptable to the US, which is in violation of international norms, where there is unilateral action and coercive action by China, which the US would push back against. So that's one part of the broader geopolitical messaging that the US is attempting at this point of time.
And the larger part, well, this is also about not only about India, US that you rightly pointed out, it is also about China. But then it is also at the same time about how much US wants to align with India, the new administration, I mean, and the convergences in important critical sectors like defense, like military that we are looking at. In that aspect, how significant?
And certainly, aside from the geopolitical messaging, I think the signal also is that they would like to strengthen the bilateral relationship with India. I remember that US President Biden, way back in 2006, in one of his public interviews, had said that his dream was that by 2020, the most important relationship in the world would be that between US and India. And now we are at 2021 and he's the president. So he's in a position to advance that. So they've said that they want to strengthen the relationship in its various dimensions. And defense is clearly going to be an important part. And within defense, if we look at issues from the Indian perspective, we would certainly like to have more technology collaboration with the US. We would certainly like to do more in terms of production collaboration. We would like to explore if Indian companies can become part of the global supply chain for US companies so that there is enhanced manufacturing in India and we can build up more capacities. And again, in the context with the challenges we faced over the past year along the line of actual control, according to the public reports that came out, US had been supportive through information sharing, through supplies of winter clothing and other defense-related equipment. So this is an important partnership, and I think both countries are interested in advancing that. And that's why in his first visits that Lloyd Austin has done outside the United States, India is part of that program.
India is part of the program. And just to elaborate a bit more on the fact why India is so critically, diplomatically, strategically important for Biden administration. You serve there as India's envoy, and how do you look at, in that sense of term, the transition and this being Biden administration?
I think they see India as important for two broad sets of reasons. One, there is strength in different dimensions of the bilateral relationship. If we look at trade, for example, today it stands at about $150 billion, and it has increased 7 times in the last 20 years. So there is job creation happening in both countries as a result of that. Then in certain critical sectors, if you look at digital technology, India is an important partner for the United States. I served there and I found in Silicon Valley, Indian companies, Indian origin skilled workers, Indian origin tech entrepreneurs are an integral part of US maintaining its global leadership in innovation. So that's an important dimension.
Okay.
And pharmaceuticals. You've seen that the Quad has agreed to provide support to manufacturing in India for making available 1 billion vaccines in the Asian and Asia Pacific region. So there is a recognition that, be it in the trade dimension, economic, investment, defense cooperation, there is strength in the bilateral relationship which works for both countries. And beyond that, if US is looking at meeting the challenge from China, which it has described as its main challenge, then a country of the size of India, its demography, its economy, would have to be an important partner for the US if US is to successfully deal with that challenge.
Thank you very much, sir. We'll need to wrap it up here. Really appreciate you joining us on Newsnight, Ambassador Singh. Thank you for joining us. Well, let's move on. The United States and China, since we were talking about both countries, they will be facing new tests in their increasingly troubled relationship when top officials from both countries meet in Alaska later tonight. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan will meet China's top two diplomats, State Councillor Wang Yi and Chinese Communist Party Foreign Affairs Chief Yang Jiechi. Difficult discussions are anticipated over trade, over human rights in Tibet, Hong Kong, China's western Xinjiang region, Taiwan, Chinese assertiveness in the South China Sea and the coronavirus pandemic.
There will be some difficult conversations, I would expect. We will certainly not pull any punches in discussing our areas of disagreement. But as Secretary Blinken has said, our relationship with Beijing is a multifaceted one. It is fundamentally competitive. It is adversarial in some ways. And there also are potential areas for collaboration. But the point remains that we're not looking to engage in talks for the sake of talks. We are looking for Beijing, again, to demonstrate that seriousness of purpose, to demonstrate that it seeks to live up to its own oft-stated desire to change the tone of the bilateral relationship.
All right. And the United States and China, as we just said, let's now move on. In fact, my Beijing correspondent brings us this in-depth perspective on this first ever meeting between US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and China's State Councillor Wang Yi. Anshuman, we will be joined by Anshuman in a bit. Anshuman, if you're there, if you could hear me, what are the expectations really from this very, very critical and crucial meeting?
The United States and China will face a new test in their troubled relations when the officials from both the countries meet in Alaska. This will be the first meeting of top officials from both the countries since President Joe Biden took the office in January. The meeting comes against the backdrop of first Quad summit and followed by a high-level visits by US officials to Japan and South Korea in a show of commitment from Biden administration to its allies in Indo-Pacific region. While Secretary of State from US Antony Blinken will reach Alaska just after wrapping up his Japan and South Korea visit, US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin will arrive in India on Friday to discuss a range of issues, including a free, prosperous and open Indo-Pacific region. In recent times, US has accused China of aggression and coercion in different regions and on different issues, including Xinjiang, Tibet, Taiwan and South China Sea. Reacting to these meetings and events, China said that it is the host of any exclusive blocs and hopes that it does not disturb the regional peace and balance. US and China both have downplayed any high expectations from these meetings, while China characterizes that this meet is a high-level strategic talk, while United States says that it is an opportunity to talk directly to China and to express its and its allies' concerns face-to-face to China. Looking at the statements from both the sides, it looks as if the stage is set for first tough face-to-face meeting. Anshuman Mishra for DD News, Beijing.
That was Prasar Bharati correspondent Anshuman Mishra joining us from Beijing. And in fact, DT India asked defence analyst retired Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni about the significance of this meeting. We asked him what is really expected, some sort of tough talk from Antony Blinken. This is what he has to say.
Is the first of its kind. The meeting will be taking place after the new Biden administration has taken over. I think the talks will be tough. The Chinese are expecting that they will mellow down after the Trump administration has been tough on them, and especially Mike Pompeo has never ever minced words in calling spade a spade. And if that be so, Chinese are looking at it that the US administration will mellow down. But it appears that the Biden administration will make it clear that the rule of law shall prevail, that the Indo-Pacific, nobody will intend to do any coercion on any country whatsoever. And if that be so, I think the talks will be tough. However, the first talks after the Biden administration has been taken over, and especially it is said that the talks are the initiative of the United States, the Chinese will be clearly told that they should mellow down, and that it will be a real geopolitical challenge for the United States of the 21st century.
In other important news, crucial meeting between US Secretary of Defense, Secretary of State, South Korean Foreign Minister and Defense Minister of South Korea saw two countries, US and Korea, describing their ties as one that has never been more important in the midst of the increasing global threats. Now, interestingly, there was no mention of China in the statement that the two countries released. The two countries but reiterated the importance of maintaining joint readiness against all shared threats to the alliance. Meanwhile, South Korea maintains that trilateral security cooperation between South Korea, United States and Japan is important for safe Northeast Asia despite historical issues with Japan. Here is more.
We are committed to the denuclearization of North Korea, reducing the broader threat the DPRK poses to the United States and our allies, and improving the lives of all Koreans, including the people of North Korea, who continue to suffer widespread and systematic abuses at the hands of their repressive government.
An expected outcome from the first 2+2 dialogue between the Biden administration and South Korea. The meeting between US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, South Korean Foreign Minister Chung Eui-young and Defense Minister Sa Wook saw the two countries issue a joint statement that described their ties as one that has never been more important in the midst of increasing global threats. Though there was no mention of China in the statement, they also reiterated the importance of maintaining joint readiness against all shared threats to the alliance through combined training and exercises.
We also agreed that trilateral security cooperation between South Korea, US and Japan is important for safe and peace in Northeast Asia despite historical issues with Japan.
South Korea's President Moon Jae-in welcomed the return of diplomacy and alliance with the United States and reiterated the goal of denuclearizing North Korea during his first meeting with senior Biden administration officials. He also said the two countries' alliance was strengthening as the linchpin of peace and prosperity in the region. Meanwhile, North Korea's state media carried a statement by Choi Son-hee, First Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs, confirming that the United States had recently tried to initiate contact with the regime. Choi said North Korea had already made clear it would not talk while the United States maintains hostile policies such as military drills and sanctions, and that the attempts at contact were a cheap trick for gaining time and building up public opinion. The US-South Korea 2+2 meet comes on the back of a similar dialogue with Japan. The two top ministers from US were on an Indo-Pacific sojourn. This tour comes on the back of the first ever Quad Summit on the 12th of March. Bureau Report, DD India.
In other news, India and Kuwait have decided to establish a joint commission to enhance and deepen the ties of fraternity and friendship and support ways of cooperation in all fields. A joint statement said the meetings of the joint commission, called Joint Commission Meeting, will be held regularly to review all bilateral matters. The joint commission will be charged with formulating the required basis to strengthen the relations between the two countries, particularly in the fields of energy, trade, economy, investment and human resources. It will be co-chaired joined by External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar and his Kuwait counterpart. The Joint Commission meeting will be held in each country alternately at a mutually agreed time. Visiting Foreign Minister met with Indian External Affairs Minister in New Delhi on Thursday. The 27-member European Union has joined India's Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure initiative following its endorsement of the Charter of the CDRI earlier. Launched by Prime Minister Modi in 2019 at the UN Climate Change Summit, the CDRI is an international platform involving public and private sector, aiming to promote resilience of new and existing infrastructure systems to climate and disaster risk while supporting sustainable development. According to a statement from EU on Thursday, climate-related extreme events are increasing globally, and the COVID-19 pandemic has further reinforced the need for robust disaster preparedness and investment in renewable energy, green infrastructure, energy and resource efficiency. Large-scale retrofitting and renovation of projects and the circular economy as well. US Vice President Kamala Harris strongly worded response on Atlanta shooting, which claimed lives of 6 women of Asian descent, underlined the zero tolerance of the Biden administration against any form of hate directed against Asian Americans. Meanwhile, on the investigation front, the man who police say went on a rampage at these 3 spas reportedly in the Atlanta area, killing 8 people, was charged on with the 8 counts of murder in connection with these attacks. The brazen shootings, which took the lives of 6 women of the Asian descent at least, stirred considerable amount of outrage and fear in the Asian American community there. Here's a detailed report.
Knowing the increasing level of hate crime against our Asian American brothers and sisters, we also want to speak out in solidarity with them and acknowledge that none of us should ever be silent in the face of any form of hate.
Words of solace for a community from its first vice president. In a year when America has appointed its first female vice president and the first woman of Asian African descent in Kamala Harris, the news of Asian women being victims of racial hate crimes in the country raises alarm. 6 women of Asian descent out of the total 8 people killed were shot dead at 3 massage parlors in the Atlanta area on Tuesday evening. US President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris condemned the shooting and expressed concerns about any violence against Asian Americans. Biden said, "Brutality against Asian Americans is very troubling."
Asian Americans are very concerned because, as you know, I've been speaking about the brutality against Asian Americans for the last couple months, and I think it is very, very troubling.
Police authorities have charged the gunman in the Atlanta shooting spree with murder. They haven't attributed any motive for the shooting. They also stopped shy of addressing the race or ethnicity angles.
We've received a number of calls about, is this a hate crime? We are still early in this investigation, so we cannot make that determination at this moment.
Atlanta residents expressed anger over the spa's shooting, saying it needs to stop. Last week, US House lawmakers had passed 2 bills aimed at strengthening the nation's gun laws, including a bill that would require background checks on all gun sales and transfers. Expressing his serious concern over the state of gun laws in the country, former US President Barack Obama posted a worrying thread on Twitter. Yesterday's shootings are another tragic reminder that we have far more work to do to put in place common sense gun safety laws and root out the pervasive patterns of hatred and violence in our society. Michelle and I pray for the victims, their families, everyone grieving these needless and devastating killings, and we urge meaningful action that will save lives. Even though the motive of the latest Georgia shooting may not yet be clear, this incident will only exacerbate the fear and the pain that the Asian American community continues to endure. Bureau Report, DD India.
And now let's take a look at the COVID numbers globally. The global COVID-19 case tally now stands at over 12 crore 19 lakh, while the tally of recoveries have crossed 9 crore mark. United States continues to remain worst affected from COVID-19, where more than 3 crore 2 lakh cases of COVID have been quoted. Country's fatalities have crossed 5 lakh 50,000.
Even as the debate over the use of the AstraZeneca vaccine continues, the World Health Organization said that the benefits of AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine outweigh its risks and recommended that vaccinations continue. The African Union too has backed the continued use of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccines.
The use of the vaccine far outweighs the risks. We know that vaccines that are out there are safe and effective, and it is really important that individuals get vaccinated when it's your turn, when you are offered.
Deputy Chief Medical Officer of England, on the other hand, has also reassured that there is no increased risk of blood clots from AstraZeneca's COVID-19 vaccine. Britain will see a significant reduction in the amount of COVID-19 vaccines available at the end of the month due to a cut in the manufacturing supply. Meanwhile, British Foreign Minister Dominic Raab on Wednesday had accused the European Commission of brinksmanship over its threat to ban exports of COVID-19 vaccines. The European Union earlier threatened to ban exports of COVID-19 vaccines to Britain to safeguard scarce doses for its own citizens. Even as hospitals in Brazil struggle with an influx of cases into the ICUs, Brazil's incoming health minister said that he has been given the mission of unifying the country's fight against COVID-19 by President Jair Bolsonaro. The incoming minister was speaking at an event to mark the delivery of the first domestically produced doses of the AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine. In Japan, Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga announced the lifting of the coronavirus state of emergency in Tokyo to be effective from Sunday. The city is preparing for the upcoming Summer Olympics to be held in July-August this year.
The number of new infections has increased by more than 80% in Tokyo and 3 other prefectures. We have decided to lift the state of emergency in Tokyo and Saitama, Chiba and Kanagawa prefectures as of March 21st.
Paying solemn tributes to over 100,000 people who died in Italy over the past 13 months from coronavirus, Prime Minister Mario Draghi prayed for the victims of the pandemic in the northern city of Bergamo. Italy marked a national day of remembrance and mourning on Thursday to honor the victims of Bergamo, which was the epicenter of the initial onslaught of the disease. Bureau Report, DD India.
And back home, despite 5 states of Maharashtra, Punjab, Karnataka, Gujarat and Tamil Nadu reporting a certain surge in the COVID daily new cases, India is still inching towards total vaccination coverage of 4 crore. Meanwhile, 18 states and union territories have not reported any COVID-19 deaths in the last 24 hours, which includes Rajasthan, pole-bound Assam, Chandigarh and Himachal Pradesh.
India is fast approaching total vaccination coverage of 4 crore. More than 20 lakh vaccine doses were administered on day 62 of the vaccination drive. The number of COVID tests conducted across the country has crossed 23 crores. The cumulative national positivity rate continues to remain less than 5%. It stands at 4.98% on Thursday. 5 states of Maharashtra, Punjab, Karnataka, Gujarat and Tamil Nadu continue to report a surge in the COVID daily new cases. 79.54% of the new cases are from these 5 states. 35,871 new cases were registered in the last 24 hours. Maharashtra has reported the highest daily new cases at 16,620. Considering increasing numbers of coronavirus cases, several districts have imposed restrictions and stringent measures.
जो भीड़ वाले मार्केट हैं वो थोड़े बड़े-बड़े मैदान में लेके तो भीड़ रही तो भी सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग यूज करेंगे. कल ही पुलिस महानगर पालिका राज्य सरकार की मीटिंग भी हुई है उसके ऊपर.
Amid increasing cases of coronavirus in Madhya Pradesh, Chief Minister Shivraj Singh Chauhan called for unity to fight it.
हम मुकाबला करेंगे, लेकिन सावधान रहने की जरूरत है. हम कोरोना हर हालत में कंट्रोल करेंगे, लेकिन बिना प्रदेशवासियों के संभव नहीं है.
18 states and UTs have not reported any COVID-19 deaths in the last 24 hours, including Rajasthan, Assam, Chandigarh and Himachal Pradesh. Bureau Report, DD India.
And news on election front, high-pitched campaigning is picking up in 4 states and 1 union territory that are going to polls next month. Prime Minister, in fact, addressed a public rally as part of the high-pitched campaigning for the assembly elections in West Bengal. Attacking the current ruling dispensation of Mamata government, Prime Minister said that the people of Bengal will punish Mamata Banerjee for 10 years of misrule and politics of appeasement. Here's more.
Campaigning picks up for the assembly elections in states of West Bengal, Kerala, Assam, Tamil Nadu and the Union Territory of Puducherry. Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a mega rally in West Bengal's Purulia. Addressing the gathering, PM Modi said the people of Bengal will punish Mamata for years of misrule. He went on to mock Mamata's Khela Hobe slogan.
दीदी को बंगाल के लोगों के हितों से ज्यादा खेल की चिंता पड़ी है, लेकिन दीदी ये भूल रही है कि इस बार खुद बंगाल की जनता उनके विरोध में खड़ी है। जब बंगाल के विकास के लिए दिन रात एक करने का संकल्प हो तो दीदी खेला नहीं खेला जाता, दीदी खेला नहीं खेला जाता।
In another development, BJP's West Bengal unit chief Dilip Ghosh has said that he will not contest the upcoming assembly elections and will only focus on the party's campaign in the state. BJP has announced a list of 148 candidates for the state. Meanwhile, on Wednesday evening, BJP and TMC workers clashed in Nandigram. BJP accused that the TMC goons with lathis attacked the party workers. Amidst all this, West Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee held an election rally in West Midnapur. Addressing the public meeting, she said that her government has given thousands of crores after Amphan cyclone.
मैं यहाँ की प्रशासन को अनुरोध करता हूँ, भाई प्रजातंत्र में अभी फिर खबर आई, फिर अभी एक अटैक शुभेंदु जी की काफिला के ऊपर हुई है। ये तो बहुत घबराने वाली बात है। मैं चुनाव आयोग को निवेदन करता हूं, तुरंत हस्तक्षेप करे।
In this fight, let's defeat the BJP. Whole of India will salute us. We have to fight and we have to win.
Prime Minister also addressed an election rally in Karimganj district of Assam. This was his first rally in the poll-bound state. He made an attack on the Congress for forming opportunistic alliances.
आज एक तरफ भाजपा की नीति है, भाजपा का नेतृत्व है और भाजपा की नेक नीयत भी है, वहीं दूसरी तरफ कांग्रेस है जिसके पास न तो नेता है, न ही नीति है और न ही विचारधारा है।
Candidates and star campaigners have been holding door-to-door campaigning in other cities as well as in villages. In West Bengal, 30 constituencies are set to go for polling in the first phase on 27th of this month, while elections will be held in 8 phases for 294 constituencies of the State Legislative Assembly. Bureau Report, DD India.
Moving on, Thursday saw smooth conduct of parliamentary proceedings in both houses of parliament. Rajya Sabha passed, in fact, a bill to raise FDI limit in insurance sector to 74%. Also, Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the bill this is the bill which will allow foreign ownership and control of insurance companies, but with important safeguards. In fact, the lower house also passed the supplementary demand for grants for Jammu and Kashmir, Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir and Puducherry. Here's a detailed report.
Both houses of parliament witnessed smooth proceedings, with ministers replying to questions of members and important issues raised during the question and zero hour. Rajya Sabha took the Insurance Amendment Bill 2021 for discussion and voting after Union Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman moved the motion for it. The bill seeks to raise the foreign direct investment limit in the domestic insurance companies from existing 49 to 74%. The House saw a brief adjournment as opposition parties demanded that the bill should be sent to a parliamentary select committee for further deliberations.
If FDI has to be raised,
it has to be raised with adequate safeguards. And that safeguards is what I will get into details of, very clearly looking at both aspects of control and also the ownership, and also the money which is getting collected so that Indian money remains in India, policyholders' money does not go out of the country.
Taking part in the discussion, BJP MP Bhupendra Yadav said that the draft bill has already been discussed extensively. In the meantime, replying to a question in the Rajya Sabha, Union Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad said that social media guidelines are issued not for use of social media, but of misuse and abuse of the same.
The issue is not of use of social media. The issue is of abuse and misuse of social media. The second point is, sir, Internet is a powerful invention of human mind, but it should not become the monopoly of few. And we have taken a position, any attempt to create imperialism of Internet by few companies is not acceptable.
On the other hand, Lok Sabha, the lower house, passed the supplementary demand for grants for Jammu and Kashmir and Puducherry. During the question hour in Lok Sabha, Union Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari informed that all physical toll booths in the country will be removed and collections will happen via the GPS-based system.
एक साल के अंदर सब टोल निकल जाएंगे देश के, पर उसका अर्थ ये है कि टोल नहीं रहेंगे, पर आपको जीपीएस पे हमारे केवल रोड के एंट्री पर कैमरा रहेगा, जीपीएस पर आपका इमेज कैच करेगा और जहां से जाओगे वहां और जहां से निकलोगे वहां उतना ही पैसा आपसे कटेगा.
In reply to Congress MP, Nitin Gadkari said a new expressway between Delhi to Amritsar to Katra that is being built will reduce the traffic load. Parliament Team, DD India.
Well, Indian naval landing craft utility L-58, which is the 8th and the last ship of the landing craft utility Mark IV class, was commissioned into the Indian Navy at Port Blair in Andaman and Nicobar Islands on Thursday. Commander-in-Chief Andaman and Nicobar Command Lieutenant General Manoj Pandey was the chief guest at this event. Now, the ship is manned by a motivated team of 5 officers and 50 sailors indigenously designed and built by GRSE Kolkata. The ship's commissioning has added one more feather in the cap of the nation's Make in India and Atmanirbhar Bharat program in the field of warship design and construction. The LCU-58 is an it's an amphibious ship which can carry 160 troops in addition to its crew. And with a displacement of 900 tons, the ship is capable of carrying various types of combat vehicles such as main battle tanks, BMPs, armored vehicles, trucks and others. And before we wrap up, here's the news from across the country in our National Wrap segment.
The National Investigation Agency on Thursday seized another luxury car allegedly used by suspended Mumbai police officer Sachin Vaze. The vehicle was found parked outside Vaze's residence in Saket area of adjoining Thane. The vehicle was brought to the NIA office at Kumbala Hill on Pedder Road. President Ramnath Kovind accepted credentials from ambassadors and high commissioners from Fiji, Dominican Republic, Afghanistan and Guyana in a virtual ceremony at Rashtrapati Bhavan. Dr. Cyrus S. Poonawalla, Chairman and Managing Director, Serum Institute of India, along with other Poonawalla, called on President Ramnath Kovind at Rashtrapati Bhavan on Thursday.
Well, before we move on, before we wrap up, solo cyclist Sanjay Bahadur, who paddled 1,000 kilometers across Assam, was today felicitated at Guwahati in the closing ceremony of the Hazar Bar Dekho Northeast Dekho, a solo cycling tribute to Northeast and to create awareness on Fit India movement. Here's more.
Sanjay Bahadur covered a 1,000-kilometer long solo bicycle journey across the state under the program to make India fit through its Fit India movement. The event concluded today and the closing ceremony was held at the Royal Global University in Guwahati. Sanjay Bahadur, who was on a quest to cover 1,000-kilometer long solo bicycle journey across the state of Assam, started the ride from Lashit Ghat on the banks of the Brahmaputra river to mark the tribute to river Brahmaputra. The event was a unique way to bring forth the untapped beauty of magnificent Northeast.
Fantastic experience, and one could visualize all the states of Tripura, Meghalaya,
Manipur, Nagaland, Mizoram on the south bank, and then turning, visualize Arunachal and further ahead Sikkim. So it was really in the heart of Northeast that I was riding. Fantastic experience, fantastic people all over, and so much warmth and affection that I and my team got. Fantastic experience. I hope people who have been viewing this would now know what Northeast means and how warmly and how nicely the heart beats. Please come to Northeast and keep cycling.
While speaking to Didi, he shared his experience in the last 10 days of his journey on a bicycle. Describing the natural beauty of Northeast, Sanjay Bahadur said that it is a beautiful place to visit and also urged the tourists to visit Northeast. He also added that Northeast is an unexplored paradise.
We encourage all of you to do these kind of initiatives and many more other initiatives, but keep promoting the beautiful part of your country, not only to Indians, but to the people from all over the world. They must come and see your part of the country.
A sport to support the Northeast tourism is indeed a unique way to create awareness about the fitness and to grab the attention of the tourists towards the region. Organizers have hoped through this type of programs that the Northeast tourism will come in the eyes of national and international arenas.
And with that, it's time to wrap up this edition of News 9. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. with the latest. Stay with us. Namaskar.